When I first started learning Spanish, the subjunctive terrified me. I avoided it like the plague. I mean, seriously, so many conjugations. I had just mastered the normal tenses, I didn't have it in me to start over with all those subjunctive tenses. Plus, preterito pluscuamperfecto? Are you kidding me? No, thank you. But here's the wild part. Despite how overwhelming it seemed, there are only 2 full subjunctive tenses we have to memorize. Just 2. Crazy, right? How is that even possible? Well, stick with me, because in this video, I'm sharing 8 things I wish I knew about the subjunctive from the start. Hola, soy Jordan, and this is a Spanish Quickie. Fast, easy Spanish lessons from somebody who speaks your language. Before we dive in, just a heads up, the closer you are to being a total beginner, the trickier this video might feel. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't watch, it just means you might not catch everything on the first go, and that's totally okay. Seriously, don't stress or feel overwhelmed if you feel lost. This is at least an intermediate level video. So what is the subjunctive? Well, that brings us to the first thing I wish I knew about the subjunctive from the start. I regret wasting so much time trying to define the subjunctive beyond this. The subjunctive is an alternative set of conjugations used in certain situations. In Spanish, there are what I call the 5 normal tenses: present tense, preterite tense, imperfect tense, future tense, and conditional tense. These are technically called the indicative tenses, but I prefer normal tenses. Then there's the subjunctive, which is like stepping into an alternative world of conjugations. Same verbs, different endings, used in specific situations. For example, in Spanish, in the normal present tense, you speak is hablas. Hablar is an AR verb, and hablas has an ending that starts with A. But in the subjunctive present tense, you speak is hables. Hables is still from hablar, an AR verb, but now has an ending that starts with E. You speak is hablas in the normal present tense, and you speak is hables in the subjunctive present tense. You with me? So again, the subjunctive is an alternative set of conjugations used in certain situations. I'd love to go beyond that. I'd love to give you a more specific definition, but I can't, not without misleading you. I know what you're thinking, but isn't the subjunctive all about wishes, emotions, opinions, doubts, or hypothetical situations? Yeah, I've heard all that too. And sure, those things sometimes trigger the subjunctive, but blanket statements like those are misleading. You'll see plenty of sentences about wishes, emotions, opinions, and doubts that don't use the subjunctive. I wasted so much time trying to define the subjunctive using everything the Spanish authority tells us. But after digging through thousands of examples, here's what actually holds up. The subjunctive is an alternative set of conjugations used in certain situations. Ready for some really good news? Despite how overwhelming the subjunctive might seem at first glance, I wish I'd known from the start, you only need to memorize 2 full subjunctive tenses, the present subjunctive and the past subjunctive. That's it. Let me put that in perspective. In the normal tenses, there are 5 full tenses: present, preterite, imperfect, future, and conditional, and you have to memorize the conjugations for every verb in all 5 tenses. Fun, right? But in the subjunctive world, there are only 2 full tenses to memorize, the present subjunctive and the past subjunctive. That's all. How cool is that? Now, don't get me wrong, there are still irregular verbs to deal with, because of course it's Spanish, but there aren't as many as in the normal present or preterite tenses. So yes, there's some work involved, but it's way less than it first appears. A few things you need to know. First, technically there are 2 versions of the past subjunctive. I spoke in the past subjunctive can be hablara or hablase. One version ends in RA, the other version ends in SE. Luckily, the 2 versions mean exactly the same thing. The only difference is in the endings, and the RA form is way more common, so I recommend you memorize that one and just recognize the SE form when you see it. The second thing you need to know is the progressive tenses, I am speaking, and perfect tenses, I have spoken, do exist in the subjunctive, but they're not full tenses. All you need are the subjunctive conjugations of estar and haber, and you're good to go. In the present subjunctive, I am is esté instead of the normal estoy. Once you know that, you can say esté hablando, I am speaking, esté comiendo, I am eating, esté saliendo, I am leaving, or any other verb in the present progressive subjunctive. And I have in the present subjunctive is haya instead of the normal e. Once you know that, you can say haya hablado, I have spoken, haya comido, I have eaten, haya salido, I have left, or any other verb in the present perfect subjunctive. See how that works? Once you know estar and haber in the subjunctive, you can handle the progressive subjunctive and perfect subjunctive forms without memorizing anything extra. The third thing you need to know is, technically, there is a future subjunctive and a future perfect subjunctive, but they're barely used. Like, I've never seen them. For all practical purposes, they don't exist, so don't waste your time worrying about them. Bottom line, the subjunctive conjugations aren't as scary as they seem. There are only 2 full tenses we have to memorize. One of the reasons the subjunctive seems so overwhelming is a lot of the tenses have multiple names. That's the third thing I wish I'd known from the start. Take the past subjunctive, for example. Some people call it the imperfect subjunctive, or in Spanish, imperfecto de subjuntivo, even though the past subjunctive is used for both the preterite and the imperfect in subjunctive world. Don't worry, we'll get into that soon. Then there's the past perfect subjunctive. Some call it the pluperfect subjunctive, or in Spanish, preterito pluscuamperfecto de subjuntivo. Fun. I keep it simple, nice and tidy. I stick to 4 basic names: present subjunctive, past subjunctive, present perfect subjunctive, and past perfect subjunctive. Don't let their cockamamie names make you think there are more subjunctive tenses to memorize than there actually are. And honestly, you don't even need the names of the tenses once you're out there in the real world. When you're out there speaking, reading, or listening to Spanish, no one's gonna quiz you on terminology. Most Spanish speakers don't even know this stuff, just like most of us don't know it in English. The fourth thing I wish I'd learned right from the start: the present subjunctive and past subjunctive each do double and triple duty. The present subjunctive is used for both the present tense and the future tense in subjunctive world, and the past subjunctive is used for the preterite tense, the imperfect tense, and the conditional tense in subjunctive world. That's how we get away with just 2 subjunctive tenses, even though there are 5 normal tenses. The present subjunctive covers 2 tenses, the present and the future. The past subjunctive covers 3 tenses: the preterite, the imperfect, and the conditional. I learned pretty early on that the present subjunctive worked for the present and the future, but nobody ever told me that the past subjunctive covers the conditional too. Nobody! When I finally realized it 15 years into learning Spanish, I was floored and excited. Okay, here's some not so great news. Except for expressions and exceptions, the subjunctive shows up in 3 distinct grammatical situations. And figuring out whether to use the subjunctive in each situation, that requires a slightly different approach or test. At first, this can feel a bit technical. When I first came across these 3 situations, my eyes glazed over. I shut the book in frustration and thought, this can't be right. It felt so different from anything I'd learned before. Honestly, I even convinced myself the author must be wrong. Spoiler alert, they weren't. Here's the thing. This is the key to using the subjunctive correctly. Once you get this, everything starts to make sense. And the good news is, if you can identify nouns, adjectives, and adverbs, you can handle this. Most of the time, it's pretty simple. Occasionally, it's trickier, but it's never rocket science. We don't have time to dive into the 3 situations and their tests in this video, but don't worry. In the next video, I'll walk you through how to identify the 3 situations. Then, in the video after that, I'll explain the specific tests for each one. So if you're not already subscribed to the Spanish Dude newsletter at SpanishDude.com/newsletter, you should do that now. I don't know how or where you found this video, but if you're not subscribed, there's a good chance you'll miss those next 2 videos. The link is below or in the description. The 6th thing I wish I knew from the start is, and this one really gets my goat, weirdo doesn't work. It just doesn't work. If you're not familiar with it, weirdo is a super common acronym designed to help us figure out when to use the subjunctive. Each letter represents a trigger for the subjunctive. W is for wishes, E is for emotions, and so on. Sounds useful, right? From one of the most popular Spanish teaching websites. Subjunctive sentences often contain a weirdo verb that signals the verb in the next clause will be in the subjunctive. They give no more context, just straight into examples. Like this one, we hope that you come to the party. Since hope is a wish, the W in weirdo, it's supposedly a weirdo verb, a verb that causes the subjunctive in the following clause. Don't worry if you have no clue what a clause is. That means come should be in the subjunctive, and sure enough, in this simple example they chose to illustrate their point, that's correct. Esperamos que vengas a a la fiesta. Vengas is a subjunctive conjugation of venir. Weirdo worked. When I first learned weirdo, I went out into the world and started applying it. And not only did weirdo leave most examples of the subjunctive unexplained, it often led me to the wrong answer. And now I know why. Turns out, weirdo was only designed originally to help us in one of the 3 grammatical situations, even though most Spanish teaching resources incorrectly tell us, or imply, that it works for the subjunctive in general. So we mistakenly apply weirdo to all 3 situations, frequently leaving us frustrated with the wrong answer. Here's an example. I want a book that you wrote. I want the book that you wrote. The only difference is a book versus the book. Since want is a wish, the W in weirdo, the verb in the following clause, wrote, should be in the subjunctive for both. Let's translate. I want a book that you wrote. Quiero un libro que hayas escrito. Hayas is subjunctive, so weirdo worked. But now the second sentence. I want the book that you wrote. Quiero el libro que escribiste. Escribiste is a normal conjugation, not subjunctive. See the problem? Weirdo told us to use the subjunctive for both sentences, but the second one doesn't use it. Weirdo led us to the wrong answer. Weirdo didn't work. Now, in weirdo's defense, the reason it didn't work in that situation is it wasn't designed to. Remember, even though most teachers' books and websites don't seem to realize this, weirdo was only originally designed to help us with one of the 3 grammatical situations. That was one of the 2 situations weirdo wasn't designed for. But here's the kicker. Weirdo doesn't even work reliably in the situation it was designed for. Take these 2 sentences. I love that you are going. I love where you are going. The only difference is that versus where. Since love is an emotion, the E in weirdo, the verb in the following clause should be in the subjunctive for both. Let's translate. I love that you are going. Me encanta que vayas. Vayas is subjunctive, so weirdo worked. But now the second sentence. I love where you are going. Me encanta a donde vas. Vas is a normal conjugation, no subjunctive here. Again, weirdo told us to use the subjunctive in both cases, but the second sentence doesn't use it. Weirdo didn't work. What's really going on? The truth is, whether the subjunctive is used or not isn't directly tied to wants, emotions, or other weirdo triggers. There's something deeper going on that weirdo doesn't address. The 7th thing I wish I'd known from the start is, of the 3 grammatical situations, most Spanish teaching resources start with the hardest one, the weirdo one. Why? I have no idea, but the weirdo situation is definitely the most complicated of the 3. And by starting with it, they make the subjunctive feel way harder than it actually is. When we start with the hardest examples, it's easy to assume the subjunctive is always that confusing, when in reality, the other 2 situations are much simpler. That's why, in my upcoming subjunctive workshop and subjunctive premium course, I start with the easiest situation first. Then I move on to the next easiest, and only at the very end do we tackle the weirdo situation. Because I'm not a weirdo. I believe in teaching in a logical step-by-step order, not throwing the hardest stuff at you first. You can find all the details at SpanishDude.com/subjunctive if you want to check it out. Regardless, just remember, the weirdo situation, emotions, doubt, all that stuff, is the hardest of the 3 situations. The rest is much easier. Have you heard of that so-called rule? The subjunctive is only used when the 2 subjects in the sentence are different. If the subjects are the same, no subjunctive? Sounds simple, right? Well, the 8th thing I wish I knew from the start is, like weirdo, this rule is just plain wrong. Take this sentence. She is going to talk to him, although she is scared. In English, the subject is the same in both clauses. She is the subject of is going to talk and is scared. And in Spanish, you can translate this without the subjunctive. Ella va a hablar con él aunque ella tiene miedo. Here, tiene is a normal conjugation of tener. The same subject rule seems to hold up. But here's the twist. You can also translate this with the subjunctive. Ella va a hablar con él aunque ella tenga miedo. This time, tenga is a subjunctive conjugation of tener. Same subject, but now the subjunctive is being used. Clearly, the same subject rule doesn't work. The subjunctive can be used even when the subject in both clauses is the same. There's something else at play here, a deeper, more reliable explanation. And that is a wrap for today. Did this this video help you? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget, in the next video, we'll dive into the 3 grammatical situations where the subjunctive occurs. Then, in the video after that, we'll break down the 3 distinctive tests for each situation. These are game changers, different than anything you've seen before, so make sure you don't miss them. Subscribe to the Spanish Dude newsletter at SpanishDude.com/newsletter to stay in the loop. And if you're curious about my subjunctive workshop or subjunctive premium course, you'll find all the details at SpanishDude.com/subjunctive. Both links are right below this video or in the description. Alright, that's it for now. Until the next time, hasta luego. Adios, amigo.